Let's bring in ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Congressman Himes was in Munich last weekend and met personally with President Zelensky. Congressman, thanks for being with us. What did you hear from President Zelensky about the urgency of this aid package, which, as you know all too well, has been held up in the House of Representatives?
Yeah, absolutely. And we heard Zelensky and his people say this is a turning point in the war. If we are cut off from U.S. aid, we will slowly lose this war. And he gave example after example. And, you know, no surprise there. What was a surprise was, and it was honestly very hard, was the juxtaposition of an example of precisely how murderous Vladimir Putin is with his widow, literally 2 hours after she learned that her husband had been killed in an Arctic prison, addressing Munich and then coming to meet with us. I mean, the fortitude was unbelievable, but the demonstration of Putin's murderousness, along with just the sheer hypocrisy of my Republican colleagues who listened to Zelensky and said, oh, we're going to work so hard to get this done. We're going to work so hard to get this done. And then you say to them, well, are you willing to, for example, sign a discharge petition, which is one of the ways we could get Ukraine aid to the floor? And they say, oh, well, that would create all sorts of problems for me in my primary. You know, and then you've got J.D. Vance running around pretending as though, you know, providing aid to Ukraine and sending that signal to Putin and sending that signal to Taiwan, to China, that somehow that is not affordable to the United States. You know, $60 billion being more or less a rounding error in our annual defense bill. It was just, I got to tell you, it was a really hard couple of days.
So, Congressman, as you just pointed out in what you just said, Ukraine has its back against the wall right now. This is a really perilous point in terms of Ukraine's survival. Wall Street Journal lead editorial this morning is about the fact that there are $300 billion in Russian reserves being held in Western financial institutions. What about the idea, the concept, the degree of difficulty in seizing those assets and spending that money in Ukraine?
Well, I think that will ultimately be the answer, and that conversation came up a lot. And by the way, it's a little hard for Americans to go to Munich with the, you know, Danes emptying out their artillery inventories, with the EU stepping up much larger than the United States is stepping up. It's hard to then look at Europeans in the eye and say, hey, you guys are holding that money, you got to hand it over. You know, they look at us and they say, well, hey, you guys seem to be doing the work of Vladimir Putin. But where the Europeans are right now is that they have decided that they can pay the interest on that money. That's about $4 or $5 billion a year to the Ukrainians, but they're not there yet with respect to turning over the principal. I think at the end of the day, when all is said and done, that will be the answer. But, you know, the argument the Europeans make is that this is a fight between countries that believe in the rule of law and Vladimir Putin, who observes no law. So we've got to be particularly careful about observing the law, and they're not wrong about that. And as I said before, you know who doesn't have any credibility at that table is the country that can't seem to get out of its own way and provide a tiny amount of aid that would make all the difference to the Ukrainians.
Well, and Congressman, Steve Ratner was on earlier today. We were talking about aid to Ukraine, how much we spend, how much European countries spend. You have Donald Trump running around lying, talking about how they're not doing their share, and big countries saying, oh, we're not going to do our 2%, we're not going to do our share. Steve Ratner pointed out to us a couple of fascinating facts. When it comes to percentage of our GDP, the United States funding for Ukraine is 0.3%. 0.3%. That ranks us, are you ready? Are you ready from the allies? That ranks us number 31 in terms of how big supplies we're giving to the Ukrainians. So 31, we rank 31. And then the thing that for the J.D. Vances of the world is saying, oh, we need to spend the money here in the U.S. We don't need to be spending the money all over. Well, that's a lie, too, because as Ratner says, about 2/3 of that $61 billion, about 2/3 of it goes to U.S. companies, goes to U.S. suppliers. 2/3. 2/3 of that money, of that bill, goes to American companies. And so, again, their lies fall flat, whether it's Donald Trump lying about other countries not doing their part, our senators and House members, Republicans, lying about the fact that this is a giveaway to Europe. It's just not.
and remember, Joe, the other thing, you're absolutely right about that. Again, on a relative basis, we're pretty squishy compared to the Europeans, right? Compared to the size of our economy, compared to per capita donations. The other thing that I've been dealing with for weeks, if not months, is this argument, and every Republican says it, which is that we need to secure our border. And until we secure our border first, we shouldn't be worried about the Ukrainian border. That's their talking point. Well, guess what? This whole idea that we can't do both at once. We are a country that runs a Medicare program, a Medicaid program, a space program, a foreign aid program. You know, we're helping the Taiwanese. We're doing 1,000 things around the world. And yet the Republicans have somehow decided that there's a trade-off between helping Ukraine and helping the border. So, yeah, let's fix the border. What if we came up with a Senate bill that got strong bipartisan support that Mitch McConnell would say was the best deal they're going to get, better than the deal they would get if Donald Trump was president? What if we did that, Joe? Oh, wait a minute. We did do that a couple of weeks ago, and the Speaker of the House and House Republicans said, sorry, we're not going to do that. And you know why they said that? Because they would much rather run in November on chaos in the border than actually even genuflect in the direction of solving the problem at the border.
And what did Trump admit? He admitted just that. He said, blame it on me. I don't want, admitted this. I don't want the border problem fixed. I don't want it fixed. Let the fentanyl come over for the next year. Let illegal immigrants come over for the next year. Migrants come over for the next year. Trump said, I don't want it fixed because they may get some credit for it.
Yep. Ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Thank you.